Jarren Duran established himself as one of the best, most talented young center fielders in the game of baseball in 2023. Tune into today's episode of Locked On Red Sox, where I tell you why his 2023 performance is sustainable.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Red Sox, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast, here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox straight to your feed Monday through Friday. This is the show where I like to say my emotions match your emotions. Anything you're feeling, I'm feeling it too, and I will dive all of that with you and explore every avenue that this Boston Red Sox baseball team makes us feel. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks and you could win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. As I like to say on this show, the Red Sox keep us on our toes, so Locked On Red Sox will certainly keep you on your toes. Here on today's show, I'm doing what I like to call the Boston Red Sox season in thirds. So I will be giving my biggest takeaway from the first 2 months of the season, then the second 2 months of the season, and then the final 2 months of the season. What was that big takeaway that I got from each of those sections of the season? Now, some of you may know that I wasn't with the Locked On Podcast Network when the season started. I actually started in June. It's crazy that it's gone by as fast as it has so far, the time that I've been here. Thank you for everybody who's been along for the ride this whole time. It's truly been just a phenomenal experience so far. But because I wasn't here for the first couple months of the season, I thought this would be a good time to really enlighten you on the takeaways from the first couple months of the season. So obviously when the season starts, end of March, everybody's riding high with their emotions and their excitement about Red Sox baseball being back. I mean, who wouldn't? I was so excited, not really sure what to expect from the team this year. And then one player in particular really stood out to me in April and May, and that is Jarren Duran. The resurgence of Jarren Duran was the biggest storyline that I was looking out for in those first couple months of the season. He put together a very nice season, ending it with a .295 batting average, 46 runs, 40 RBIs, and 24 stolen bases, and a .346 on base percentage. He's fast, he's versatile, he makes things happen. In April and May, he started off very hot at the plate. He got his earned run average all the way up to a .436 on April 28th in a game versus the Cleveland Guardians, and his dominance continued into May. He was hitting over .400 for that first stretch in May and really kept himself over the .300 mark for a lot of that month. And prior to 2023, there were people that were giving up on Duran and saying he's not really a guy for this team. And I kept saying, hey, you need to give him some time because he will come around. And as a result, he really did. And he put together a very nice season for himself in 2023 prior to getting injured. I have learned from watching him play in 2023 that this is sustainable. He is a player that, as a Boston Red Sox fan, you will look to and say it's impossible to not be excited about for the future. When he was at the plate in 2023, he thrives in situational hitting. With the bases empty, he had 3 home runs, 202 at-bats this year with the bases empty, and recorded 58 hits. Whereas with men on base, he recorded 40 hits, 5 home runs, and 37 RBIs. And then with men in scoring position, he had 69 at-bats, recorded 22 hits, and only 2 home runs, but 30 RBIs. And I look at those numbers and I say he can hit well no matter the circumstance. Obviously, with nobody on base, he recorded a lot of hits, but that's a lot of a reflection of the Red Sox offense when they couldn't come through this year and not being able to deliver to get on base for him. So he was put in situations to do that. But if he can hit situationally when there are people on base and drive in runs, that's telling. And with men on base, having 13 doubles and 22 singles is a good step for him moving forward. And he also recorded 15 singles with men in scoring position. Those stand out to me, those types of numbers. And he does have to, learn to evenly match his walk ratio with his home run and strikeout ratio a little bit more. He's not as willing to take walks as some other players, which is oftentimes a reflection of being too young, not really having that plate discipline yet. So that is something he has to work on, but he's able to hit to all parts of the field. He recorded 30 hits to left field in 2023. To center, recorded 40 hits. To right, he recorded 28 hits, and to the opposite field, 30 hits. So he's hitting to all parts of the ballpark, which is something that can serve him very well and will be sustainable moving forward, because that tells me that when he's at the plate, he's figuring out how to maneuver himself and hit to the best part of the ballpark to land himself in a successful situation. When he was in high leverage this season, he had 26 at-bats and scored 11 runs in that time with 9 RBIs. Now, high leverage could mean a lot of different things to you, but typically it means when the bases are loaded or the Red Sox are down a run and there's somebody on base and he needs to come through to help drive in that run. So high leverage could really mean a lot of different things, but he's making contact in those types of situations, which shows that he's not really afraid of the pressure. What I will say about him is, he has really come a long way. His batting average is not as high as his on-base percentage, but when he is getting on base, he's stealing bases and he's figuring out ways to make it exciting and create action and just make something happen, because when he was out there, the Red Sox knew that they could count on him. In high leverage situations, he was only taking a walk, very little times compared to his K percentage. He would strike out about 14% of the time and walk about 3% of the time in those high leverage situations. So that really goes back to him developing more plate discipline. But overall, it's sustainable. These things that I mentioned that he needs to work on with the plate discipline more come with time than lack of ability. He does have a lot of raw power, which is always promising, because that makes it hard for opposing pitchers to decide what they want to throw to him, because if they are worried that he's going to hit the ball far. So by having the ability to just have that raw power and his athleticism, he's going to throw off opposing pitchers to the point where they might not know what should be thrown to him. So Jarren Duran having this surprise resurgence was one of the best things about the 2023 season to me, but it was the biggest thing of note that stood out to me in those first couple months of the season. Coming up, I'm going to be talking about June and July. What made those parts of the season either good or bad? What was the biggest takeaway or surprise from the second third of the season? Going to be touching on that. Fantasy baseball is honestly so much fun, and the MLB playoffs are here, which means the clock is ticking on your chance to 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. this is the time when you have players like Acuna, Betts, Bryce Harper, all in the playoffs. The list can go on when you have, Astros players like Alex Bregman and Jose Altuve. All these players are in the postseason right now. So all you have to do is pick more or less on stats for these stars like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for up to a 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you could win big. Use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. The best thing about Sleeper is that entries can be made in under a minute. It takes you no time at all to go into the Sleeper app and log these picks. So why not just try it if you're already thinking about doing it? And you also should download the SiriusXM app because they can get you the home broadcast of every Red Sox game so that you don't have to miss a single pitch moving forward. And I promise you, you won't want to miss a single pitch because 2024 is going to be a good season for the Red Sox. And I would not want you to miss some of those really good games where the Red Sox might have a big comeback, kind of like the Braves had against the Phillies the other night. So I wouldn't want you to have to miss that. So SiriusXM has you covered. Just search Red Sox within the app and you can get the home broadcast of every game right to your feed. The Red Sox were consistent all season long for 2023, and I can honestly use that as my biggest word to describe the 2023 Red Sox. Very up and down, couldn't put everything together. When one thing was coming together, another thing wouldn't. And there were periods of time where they were super fun to watch, and other periods of time where they were not fun to watch at all. They went on a little mini win streak in June, winning 6 games in a row, and everybody thought the tide was turning at that point, and it didn't. And then they went on to some tough losing streaks that people were like, oh, there's the Boston Red Sox. So it was a very inconsistent season in general. But in the second third of the season, when the summer was just starting up, the weather was getting warmer, June and July, when Red Sox fans were trying to really figure out what the identity of this team was, the resurgence and comeback of James Paxton, to me, was a huge thing during that time. He returned in May, but the dominance he showed in June and July was tremendous. June, he had his ERA down to a 2.70 by the end of the month. And in July, he was at about a 3.34 to end that month. And during that 2-month span, he only gave up a handful of runs. In the entire month of June, he only gave up 6 earned runs. And then in July, he gave up a couple more than that. But he wasn't giving up a lot of home runs. In July, he gave up 3 home runs. In June, he gave up 2. So it showed that he had the arm to be able to control these opposing hitters and wasn't making mistakes that were giving up the long ball. Hitters were able to grind out some hits against him, but overall, he was having very good outings. And the reason that this stood out to me was because of how much time he missed. Because he missed all of the 2022 season due to injury and part of the 2023 season. So I worried that because he had been away for so long, that it was going to negatively impact his ability to perform at the level he should be performing for the Red Sox. And when he came onto the mound and he was absolutely shoving, I was like, wow, this is a pleasant surprise, because when you're removed from the game for that long, sometimes it takes a while for you to get back into the swing of things, or you're rusty and may never recover. But it did not take him long to recover and come back in 2023 and contribute. And with a Red Sox starting rotation that had been as shaky as it was in 2023, he was a pitcher that for the most part really contributed and really came to show that he had the ability and that his potential was still there to show glimpses of a strong pitcher. Nobody was asking for prime James Paxton or the dominant James Paxton that would exist back in the day when he was playing with other ball clubs, but I was hoping for some semblance of productivity, and he did give that. And when the Red Sox acquired him, you know, I was like, this is a low risk, high reward move because he either comes in and isn't able to pitch and they're not spending a lot of money on him, or he comes in and he is able to pitch and he contributes for the Red Sox and they're not spending a lot of money on him. So it was just a great person to bring into the fold because it was a 2-year, $10 million contract originally. So I was like, yeah, I mean, that $10,000, if he comes in and he doesn't pitch well, in the grand scheme of things for a team as rich as the Boston Red Sox, is really not that bad. For the season as a whole, his K percentage was 24.6%, which is pretty good. So he was striking out a good amount of batters that would come up to the plate. He pitched 96 total innings, so keep that in mind. His walk percentage was 8%. So that's something that stands out to me, is the fact that he wasn't walking a lot of guys, and walks were a huge problem overall for the Red Sox pitching staff this year. He was being productive on the mound and, making hitters work and not really giving them a free pass. And that just shows the type of veteran that he is. He's had so much experience with this, and a lot of times when guys are getting towards the part in their career where maybe they've been through a lot of injuries or their arm's been worked a lot because they've been a starting pitcher for so long, sometimes if their arm starts to deteriorate, they'll start to lose their command and they'll start walking more and more hitters. Whereas with him, he didn't do that. For him, he just continuously throughout his starts kept that walk percentage down, which showed me that he still has it, as opposed to, decreasing his command and his velocity and keeping relative control. 450 earned run average to end the season, and that is because after the All-Star break, I don't know what happened, but he did start to decline and go downhill. And for the last couple months of the season, it was tough watching him pitch because he was not pitching nearly as well as he had for the majority of the season before that. So you have to wonder really what happened there. It could have just been fatigue. He could have just been feeling like the length of the season caught up with him because it had been so long since he had pitched for a full chunk of the season or most of it. So that could have definitely been a factor. But those 2 months in June and July, shortly after he came back, he was such a positive aspect to that Red Sox rotation, to the point where people were looking at him as one of the most trusted pitchers in the rotation. You could argue he and Brian Bayo were the people that could be the most trusted in the Red Sox rotation at that point. He is a free agent. I don't expect the Red Sox to bring him back, especially with how he looked in the last couple months of the season. But I feel like when the Red Sox were in such a pinch from a pitching standpoint, he was able to help out and really contribute and show that he was just somebody who was going to help carry that rotation and eat up innings. So who knows what's going to happen with him in the offseason. But again, I appreciate those couple months because they were absolutely huge. Coming up, I'm going to be going into the final couple months of the season. What is a takeaway that I have from those couple months that I really feel like could have a huge impact on the Red Sox moving forward? That's coming up next. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but our global supply chains are fragile. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jase Medical is your solution. Just fill out their online form, and one of Jase Medical's board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate. Then Jase will send your prescriptions to one of their partner pharmacies, where your order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. You can also send your physician a message for answers to treatment-related questions anytime. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASEmedical.com. I'll tell you, the fact that their physicians are available anytime to answer questions should be enough of an incentive alone for you to want to use them, because who wouldn't take comfort in the fact that you could have medical professionals available whenever you need it, at any time, to guide you through any scary health problem you may have. So I highly recommend Jase Medical and use them for your medical needs. I also recommend the SiriusXM app. You can download the SiriusXM app on the App Store and search Red Sox, and you can find the home broadcast of every game. So what it will do is it'll actually find the Red Sox, link their home broadcast directly to your device. So for any game, no matter where you are, you can listen to the Red Sox home broadcast, and make sure to be wise about it. Don't get yourself in trouble by listening to the broadcast somewhere where you're supposed to be paying attention to whatever's going on. But when you're driving, it's a great tool to have, and it's just a good way to keep up with the team, even when you are unable to watch the game live in the comfort of your home. So download the SiriusXM app today. The Boston Red Sox season in 2023 was an absolute whirlwind. Lots of highs, lots of lows, lots of takeaways from every part of the season. And although August and September were just really frustrating for the Red Sox, and it was just basically them going through the motions trying to get through the season, one exciting thing that I enjoyed in August and September was Triston Casas' Rookie of the Year race. I mean, he's not going to end up getting it. Gunnar Henderson from the Orioles will likely end up receiving it, but he gave Gunnar a run for his money, and the improvement he showed throughout the season in general was very strong, but particularly in that last part of the season. He ended it with a 263 batting average, 113 hits, and 24 home runs, to go along with 65 RBIs and a 367 on base percentage. These are all very good numbers. And when you look at the way that Casas was able to approach his plate appearances, he was making it work and making himself have productive at-bats no matter what. In the month of August, he was able to get his batting average above 250 and keep it there for the entire second half of the month of August. And then he went into September, and it sat around 263 for that whole month, which is very good. And his on-base percentage being as high as it was in the 360s, that shows that, even though his batting average isn't above 3, he was making an impact in other ways by getting himself on base, no matter what that looked like. During the 2023 season, he showed his power, that he can really launch baseballs, but he also showed that he, has the ability to be disciplined at the plate and not swing at every pitch that comes his way. In his walk percentage was 13.9% during the season. So that's a relatively high percentage. It just basically showed that 13% of the time he was willing to take a walk. And for a rookie, that's a high number, because a lot of times rookies have that problem of jumping the gun and wanting to switch at really any pitch. And we've seen that happen with Cedar Rafaela. He really wants to just swing at every pitch, and his first instinct is always to get up there and just swing no matter what the pitch is. But Casas is good at refraining himself from that and keeping himself at a level where he's showing that he's willing to take his walks. He did have a 25% strikeout rate. I expect that to only change over time and decrease as he gets more comfortable with being in the majors and just acclimating himself and gaining that comfortability, because comfortability is what's really huge. And, for him as well, he was able to hit the off speed pitches really well, which is key. You can't have a hitter who is just hitting fastballs and can't really hit anything else. We kind of see that problem happen with Masataka Yoshida. And he's just a very fastball heavy hitter, and he relies on that for a lot of his success. But Triston Casas hasn't really been relying on that, and he's finding himself able to hit at, more advanced pitches and the challenging pitches, which is what we like to see from him. So, when you compare kind of him to Gunnar Henderson, the reason Gunnar is going to win Rookie of the Year is because he did everything at a little bit of a higher level than Casas did. But that's not to say that Casas can't get to his level numbers wise. It just was, Gunnar had a faster start and kind of started off figuring this all out from the get-go, whereas Casas needed to take some time during the season to really find his swing and figure out what he was doing, kind of navigating through, what pitches are most comfortable for me to swing at, like what should I be doing in terms of, like trying to see, oh, is my batting approach going to work with this pitcher or is it not going to work with this pitcher? Him having that self-realization took a little bit longer than it did for Henderson, but Triston is on the fast track to success, my friends. I mean, he just has shown so much ability, and we knew he had the talent. I mean, we saw him play at the minor league level and knew he had the talent to be able to succeed. And he just has continued to prove that over and over again. He does have to come through a little bit more in high leverage situations. He had 15 RBIs in high leverage in 2023. And scored 9 runs and recorded 18 strikeouts. So that is a number that I'd like to see get a little bit better overall. But I mean, the kid can hit. That's absolutely for certain. And it's going to come, in handy next year when the Red Sox are building their roster and they're trying to figure out who is going to play where, who can they rely on to do what. And Casas, to me, is one of those players that the Red Sox are really going to be able to rely on longer term to be there and be a core piece of the puzzle for years to come. So when I look at July, September, August, May, April, you name it, whatever the month was, Casas was starting to show growth during that time. And then once August and September really hit, he just went off, and it was the most exciting thing for me to watch in that last third of the season. So obviously I identified the biggest takeaway from each third of the Boston Red Sox season in 2023. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was in the comments. If you enjoyed a certain thing, or if you felt like there was a big storyline that defined each third of the season individually, please put that in the comments and let me know. But my overall takeaway from the whole season is too much inconsistency and not enough pitching depth. So hopefully the Red Sox can figure that out this offseason. Keep the faith that they will. Let's go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.